Good afternoon from Center for Spiritual Living, Ocala. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes, and I am so happy that you have joined us this afternoon for our sacred conversation. I'm going to tell you a little bit about us if this is your first time joining us with the Center for Spiritual Living, so you can have an idea of who we are and what we are about. These are our values at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. We are located in Ocala in Central Florida, and it's a beautiful, warm day today. And so these are the things that we value at the Center for Spiritual Living. Number one on our list is spiritual growth and practice. That is the whole reason that we come together as a community, is to learn and to grow these spiritual practices together, because we believe that the spirit is the basis for all of our lives. When we have things right in the spiritual realm, everything else is right in our lives, or we have the capacity for that. We value love as well, is right at the top of our list. Appreciation, community is just such a big thing for us at the Center for Spiritual Living, and we've got some things coming up in the next month I'm excited to share with you later today. We value freedom and creativity. We value health and wholeness, and that is health in every realm of life, including our physical health and our relationship health and finances and health and wholeness in every way. We value generosity and financial well-being. And our mission at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala is to provide spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. Our purpose is to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence, meaning we believe that we all come into this world perfect, whole, complete beings, and we may forget that in our journey of life as we go along this hero's journey. And our purpose at the Center for Spiritual Living is to reawaken that and remind people of the truth of their being. And our vision is a world that works for everyone. That means it's a world that works for me, it's a world that works for you, it's a world that works for our country and nations all over the world. And so that is our vision, and a little bit about who we are. And so today we're starting a new topic. It's a new month, our first Sunday in June. And we have been talking about the Revolutionary Love Project, which is based on the book See No Stranger by Valerie Kaur. And today's topic is a little bit different. Some of you might find it strange to hear that we're talking about rage today. Not just anger, but actually rage as a spiritual practice. Now, again, that might seem a little strange for some folks, but I think by the end of our conversation, or as we get into it today, you'll have an idea of why this is such an important part of this idea of practicing revolutionary love, not just for ourselves or for the people that are closest to us, but actually for our opponents. And so that's the start of our conversation today. And before we get going, I think I will go ahead and just pray us in. I probably need it more than anybody else at this moment. And so I'm just going to invite you to drop down. And as I'm thinking about it, I just want to shout out to Donna and Norma, who are usually with us. And, you know, Donna usually prays us in, but they're on the road this afternoon. And so I'm just wishing them safe travels and bringing them into our circle of conversation, even though they're not here physically. They're probably watching. And so welcome to everyone. And so I'm going to invite you to just take a deep breath and center into this moment, just releasing anything that has come before this moment, releasing any concerns or worries about what may come later, and just be here present, right here, right now, with the sound of my voice. Take a deep breath and feel your body just relax into this present moment. And I take this time to acknowledge the power and presence that runs in, around, and through all things. It is all knowing. It is all powerful. And it lives and moves and breathes through each one of us. And so I affirm that as we have this conversation today, myself and our guests, that whatever needs to be said is said, and that whatever needs to be heard is heard, and that it is a message that is an awakening, it is an uplifting, and it helps us access that love that we all came here to share and to be and to make manifest in our world. And so I just affirm that our time together is fruitful. I affirm that people walk away from this experience perhaps changed in some way for the better, but also having some tools as each one of us go into our respective life experience. Just having those tools for navigating life's challenges and moving us through to our greater yet to be. And so I release these words with joy and with gratitude, knowing that Spirit is in this place. It is where I sit. It is where each one of us listens. It is where each one of us are and how we show up in the world. Each one of us, the eyes and ears and mouth and hands and feet and mind of Spirit itself. So I release these words with joy and with gratitude, knowing that it is already done, and say, and so it is. And so I'm going to bring in my guests. You know these ladies already if you've been watching. Let me bring in Ms. Lida Perez. Hello, Lida.
Hello.
So wonderful to have you join us this afternoon. Thank
Wonderful
you.
to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it's such an important conversation, and I know you have a lot to say about it.
Oh, yes, I do.
And let me
Yes, I
also
do.
bring in Corinne Dean. Hey, Corinne. So good to have
Hello,
you.
hello, ladies.
Welcome, welcome. So these two ladies are part of the Center for Spiritual Living. Corinne is on our board of directors. Lida has been on our board, just integral parts of our center, and just two very powerful ladies in their own right. And this is it's just such an interesting topic for conversation, especially in a spiritual realm. And so I'm just glad to be having this chat with you ladies today. So I thought I would, let me look here and see as we go along with our friends and people who are all checking in. Awesome, awesome. So I'm going to start with the quote by Valerie, because again, this idea of rage as a spiritual practice just doesn't seem right in a spiritual conversation, right? So I'm going to just give a little background and why Valerie Kaur has included this in this idea of revolutionary love. So here we go. Here's a quote from Valerie. Love is a labor that engages all of our emotions. Joy is the gift of love. Grief is the price of love. And anger is the force that protects that which is loved. I just think that's really powerful.
It's powerful. I've read that over again and over again. I'm going to put it on the wall. It's going to be a plaque. I'm going to put it on there. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, so I imagine you ladies are probably a lot like me in and I know you are because we've had these conversations before. Just, you know, I was raised to be a nice Christian girl. And so anger was like off the table, right? I grew up in a home where my dad did all of the anger, my mother did all of the sadness, and I just flowed right in because that's kind of like it's acceptable for women to be sad and to show grief. But when men do it, they're called ugly names, right?
Right. We
Mm-hmm.
all
And
that.
vice versa. When women show anger, you know, we're not supposed to do that. So we are called ugly names. And then, you know, so all of us are kind of pushing down, suppressing these emotions that are very natural and normal and necessary part of our lives. So I'll just speak for myself and say that anger was something that I have had difficulty knowing, you know, how to handle it and what to do with it because of how I was raised. And
Mm-hmm.
so just toss that out to you ladies. How do you relate to anger?
Same here. I don't know. Lita, sorry. I hope I didn't jump in on you there, but don't be angry. Just kidding. Sorry. I just had to get a joke in there. it's such a heavy topic. We need to
Right.
laugh. But anger, same thing. Same thing. In my household, I was raised by a single mom, so mom was the only one allowed to be angry. If we got angry, it made her even angrier. So it was kind of a weird dynamic. So it was a little different. And then in my father's home, when I would visit him, he's Colombian, and yeah, I know, right? So there was no anger. In fact, he never raised his voice to me. It was very unusual, very different maybe from your household, Cindy, but it definitely, but when you think about it, even though both households were different, basically I was never allowed to be angry. Anger was just not, and forget rage. I mean, there was none of that. And so it had to be suppressed for sure.
Yeah. How about you, Lita?
Oh, there's a lot of anger in my house. That was easy. Anger was definitely there, and it usually came from the head of the household. Wait till your father gets home, and it was a heavy hand. It was a heavy hand in my house, mostly from the father's uh, end of it. Rarely did my mother ever strike us, but the anger from my father, um, so much so that one of the worst beatings I ever had in my entire life was at the hands of my father.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's a difficult thing when it was an anger of protection, thinking that he was protecting me, and that he was teaching me to be more um, careful. But in the long run, it wasn't. So yeah, that's my experience with anger, and my own anger and frustration. Um, Having had that experience with my father, I remember the first time I hurt my son, and there was a moment in that striking him that I saw my father over me and over my son, and I stood back and I realized I was going to do the same thing. And he was 2 years old, my son. That was the last time I ever laid a hand on my son. After that, I never ever struck my children. It
Yeah.
was a huge lesson, but isn't it something that, you go back to that experience, or I did, in remembering that beating and what I was doing to my son. But the cycle did not continue. It stopped there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's scary, your only associations, again, I guess I'll speak for myself, that my associations with anger always had to do with chaos
Right.
and rage and violence.
Yes.
Yes.
So anger meant danger,
Mhm.
so that was like shut down, early on. Not to say that it went away, because we know that these things don't go away, right? They stay in your system, they stay in your body. So I think I had a lot of pent up a lot of pent up rage, as a child, and then as an adult growing up. And
Hmm.
it's hard to know what to do with that when you haven't had good models for how to
Right.
deal with anger,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So I want to go back to Valerie's point and the idea of putting this in this compass of revolutionary love. So we started out in her conversation with loving others, and we
Mhm.
talked about having wonder for others. We talked about grieving with other people, and that makes a lot of sense for me, right? As showing
Hmm.
and then last month, we talked about fighting on behalf of other people
Mhm.
as showing love. So this time, now the compass is oriented toward opponents. And she has a real specific definition for opponents. So as opposed to calling somebody an enemy, right? An opponent is somebody
Love
who's
that.
against your wishes in that moment, right? So our
Hmm.
kids can be an opponent, right, Lita?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Oh,
Moment when they're not
absolutely.
what you want. Yeah, so she calls rage the first practice in loving our opponents, with the idea being that we have to first honor and tend to our own pain, right? Otherwise, whatever trauma, whatever stuff we may be going through hijacks our ability to see the humanity in the people around us, right? So to practice rage an act of revolutionary love is to really listen to our own emotions, to listen to what's going on inside of ourselves,
Yeah.
so that we can use that energy for greater purpose.
Definitely. Real quick, I'm going to jump in and, oh, I've lost it. It scrolled up already. Reverend Rodney had what's it
Comment
called?
there?
An acronym? Yes, for anger, allowing necessary, gratifying emotional release.
Mm.
So there you go. So no,
So good at that.
I love him for that. He's so good. He's so
and I
good.
think that is great. That's what you're saying there, Cindy. Allowing necessary, gratifying emotional release.
Wow.
Because it's true that, what is it? Anger, it's signifying that something's wrong. Something needs to change, whether it's with another person, maybe within ourselves, but something's definitely wrong when we feel that anger come up. So,
Exactly. Yeah. So instead of like running from it, which is kind of, let's say my tendency,
yeah,
feel that anger and be, I don't like it. I don't know what to do with it.
right.
I don't know how to handle this, and kind of run from it. The idea is to really like look at it, see what the message is that it has for you.
See what the message is. I like that. I'm going to read another one. Growing again from Rodney. Growing up, anger never seemed protective for my greater good. It was more out of being able to control a situation.
Yeah.
And I think that's why maybe we ran from it. I used to run from it too, because anger was danger. In fact, danger, isn't that the same word except you add a D?
I think so.
Danger. I'm like trying to visualize the words in my head. Just add a D in front of anger, and you've got danger.
That's right. It's the danger. Yes, exactly. I was going to say that when Reverend Cindy said that, she goes anger, and then there's danger, and I was saying it's just short of one letter.
Exactly. Isn't that? I never thought of that before. So, but it is so true, because anger is healthy. Anger is a way to tell us again something is not right. And then if you release it, you don't stay in it. So,
right.
It's important.
Yes. Yeah. So leaning into it, as Mary Ellen said, to lean into it and to make it friends and see how it serves us.
Right.
Yeah. So as I came into this teaching and understanding of social emotional learning and what to do with these emotions, because again, we know that every emotion that we have is a human emotion. We have it for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. Not to push it aside, not to get rid of it, but for it to, to look at what it's trying to tell us. So that's one of the important things, right? Is to realize that every emotion has a reason for being there, some message that it's to give us. And my aha moment came with respect to anger years ago from M.K. Mueller and her book 8 to Great, where she said that anger and sadness are flip sides of the same coin, right? And that was like, right? If you think about it, how anger and sadness, how often, again, myself, that if I'm really angry, I'll cry at the same time.
Yes.
Everybody else cry when they get angry?
Yes.
That they are both there, usually very similar extent, but because of the way we're socialized, like it's okay for women to express it as sadness, whereas men will express as anger. In a typical, I'm not saying this is true for everybody, but just kind of generalities, that we tend to do one or the other with more comfort. Right.
Yeah.
So when things go wrong, and even when I'm angry about something, I'm going to go to sadness because that's my comfortable place.
Right.
Right. But then we each need to have our own balance.
Yes.
Within ourselves, right?
It's
let's say in a relationship where, one spouse is doing all the anger and the other spouse is doing all the sadness, there may be balance in the relationship, but that doesn't mean there's balance in the individuals. Right?
Right, exactly. That would be it's a great picture of that, the yin and the yang, and changing it out for anger, sadness, that they work together.
Yeah, let me
Okay.
see if I can
I know,
find
I
that.
was going to say,
I'm gonna
yes,
look
if
for
you
it.
find that. It's such a powerful illustration of anger and sadness. But, because anger, think about it. You're angry, something comes up, something needs to change. And inside you're sad because something's not right. There's that sadness there, maybe disappointment or sadness that uh, that maybe your balance, your equilibrium has been knocked off kilter. And it's true, anger and sadness. And again, they create change. Um, I
Right.
was thinking about that too in preparation for today, and meditating on anger and how important it is. And I thought about it. Think about all the changes in our society. Did things change because somebody was mildly annoyed?
Yeah.
No, it's usually because something just said, it just enraged someone. Something happened that was so wrong, and it needed to be changed. And look at what Martin Luther King Jr. did, right? I mean, he wasn't just like, again, he wasn't mildly annoyed. There was some pretty bad stuff going on all through history, and it really is a very important emotion.
Yes. What do you think about that, Lita? The anger and sadness being together.
Well, I can
Does that
see
make sense
that.
to you?
The question that I looked at that I thought was really powerful. How do you think grief and rage are related?
Yeah.
And for me, the anger and
Mm.
sadness is the same. Because when you're grieving, I remember in the grieving, there was a part of me that was so upset with the circumstance in the grieving
Hmm.
that although I was more in the tears of it and all, there
Mhm.
was a part of me that was angry at the situation having occurred
Mhm.
Sure.
and not being able to have changed that. So all you could do was grieve. So they're very much related because like that two-sided coin. That is
Yeah.
just such a perfect way.
There it
Yeah,
is.
There you
There
go.
it
there it
is.
is. Sad, mad. Yeah,
There it
yeah.
is. You made an interesting point, Lita. When you said you were angry and sad that the situation couldn't be changed, I wonder if that's where some of the sadness comes in, maybe is a feeling if maybe you feel powerless. You're angry at something, but we need to know what we can control and can't control. Is that where sadness
Exactly.
comes in? Because we can't change it, so that creates the sadness? Or I don't know. It's an interesting. I just thought of it as you said that, Lita.
No,
An
good.
interesting point.
Mm.
Yeah, they are closely related, and I think what MK said was true. That sadness, as represented, let's say, by water, right? When you get
Yeah,
depressed
Uh-huh.
and you're crying, there's
tears.
all that kind of tears, right? That watery
Hmm.
feeling. And so what she said is that depression is not really that you're too sad. It's that
Mm.
not let yourself get angry, right?
Yes.
So the
Yes, Mary.
anger, right? The fire of the anger dries up the tears, and vice versa, right? When
Right.
someone is rage, it may not be that they're too angry, it's that they have not allowed themselves to feel their sadness and their pain. And so the water tempers, the fire, it puts out the fire. So
Hmm.
we have to have the balance of
Yes,
both.
Mary Ellen, or ME, she has said, I learned to respect anger and to allow it to come up versus fearing anger
Right.
rising within. And it's true. Let it, because if you let it come up rather than eventually it will
Suppress it.
come
Yeah.
out one way or another. And it
And
could come out
sometimes
in a
it
painful way.
expands further too. If you're holding it
Yeah.
in, you'll explode at the littlest thing, but it had
Hmm.
nothing to do with what's going on. So
Right.
suppressing it, I mean, releasing it is so important because suppressing it only builds it up bigger than what things can be.
Yeah. I
Exactly.
think about it like a pressure cooker, and all
Yes.
those images,
Yeah.
right, of the steam coming
That's
out of
good. That's
somebody's
good.
ears. They're so angry. And I don't, did
Hmm.
you ever cook with a pressure cooker? Have you ever used one?
It's a little,
It's really scary if
it
you
is
don't
a little scary.
the steam has to come off a little bit at a time. And we
Uh-huh.
actually opened a pressure cooker once before. It was really like the steam was all down and the pot like exploded. The stuff went, I mean, all
Wow.
over the kitchen, everywhere. And it's hot
Wow.
and it will burn you. And it was
Mhm.
just such a great metaphor, for me, that you have to let off that steam a little bit at a time. You have to have
Mhm.
those ways to
Mhm.
release it, or you can implode
Wow.
from the inside. And it's
Wow.
not pretty. Yeah. Yeah.
And another something else, that whole pressure cooker, and if you're feeling, and you've got that pressure building, if we want to bring this into the spiritual discussion, um, if you are building up that pressure and the anger is there, where like a pressure cooker, it's sealed, it has to be sealed off. So where does spirit come in? How can we open up to let spirit come in and direct us and soothe us and all of those things? So that's another thing. Do we close off if we let that anger build up? The
Mhm.
pressure
I
cooker
like,
idea just made me think about that.
Yeah.
and I like that metaphor also, because you said it exploded and it went everywhere. And
Mhm.
isn't it true that when you're angry and you explode like that, you've got a lot of cleaning up to do, a lot of uh,
Yeah,
forgiveness and apologizing. You've hit everything, and now
damage
you got to
control.
clean it all. Damage control. You've
Mhm.
got to clean
Mhm.
everything up and make it right.
Exactly. Exactly. So it really does behoove us to learn how to express it well,
Yeah.
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
So
It
it's
opens it
important, I
up.
think, number one, to recognize that it's natural, it's normal, and it's necessary.
Right.
Right. Like you said, Corinne, anger, I think, is meant to put us into motion,
Right.
right? To say, this is not acceptable. I'm feeling disrespected. This is my boundary and
Right.
you've crossed it, right? Whatever that
Mhm.
thing happens to be,
Mhm.
to maintain your sense of self and your boundaries, like that's what the anger is for, but not to hold on to it.
Right.
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 Yeah. Grady and I just started another we did a Netflix binge. I don't know if anybody else has seen this. Dirty It's called Dirty John, and the whole second season is the Betty Broderick story. I don't know if you remember this from the 80s. This woman put her husband through med school and then law school, and they were living large. She was a socialite in California, and he found himself a girlfriend, and she just could not let it, just couldn't let it go. Couldn't let it go. You'd have to watch the series, but she is just so over the top for years and years, this anger really getting to her, that she eventually took a gun and
Wow.
killed him and his new wife as they slept in their bed, and still doesn't have any remorse for it. So on the one hand, it's like you can understand somebody having that much rage, that much anger, that
Mhm.
they want to do
Mhm.
something,
Right.
and letting it take them over and just destroying them from the inside.
I like what Rodney's saying here, is that at some point, remove from heat.
Right, right. So, uh, again, it's true. Where does the divine guidance come in when you're so overheated and you're just hanging on to that anger? So it's that's a good point. Remove from heat.
Remove from heat. Yeah. So a couple of things I want to go through, because we're going to talk about this for the rest of the month.
Yeah.
So we're going to hit it from a couple of different angles.
Mhm.
But I want to know from you ladies, what is there an upside for you from rage? Have you ever felt so much anger it pushed you to doing something, and there was the upside of it?
And I say that the upside of that is that you recognize who you are in that
Right.
anger, and
Mhm.
what those trigger points are. You
Mhm.
recognize yourself and what brings you to that point. You also learn that there's a way you're going to learn how to cope with that anger. Just recently, I was really, really angry, and I was really angry about something, and a friend of mine called on the phone, and I was cussing up a storm. I was so angry. And I just let it all out to this person who has no idea what's going on and the expletives that came out of my mouth. But I was so angry. And the person said, there really isn't any need for that language because it's not going to change what you're feeling. And I was like, I know. I was like, oh, you know. So it does teach you something. Being angry teaches you a lot about yourself. So the upside is listen, wait to listen, not wait, but listen to what that anger is going to teach you. It's going to teach you something, and mostly it's going to teach you something about yourself and how to be able to deal with or cope with the situation.
Yes. Oh, I agree. And I kind of jumped ahead a little earlier in our discussion when I talked about the changes in our world. That's the upside of anger and the upside of rage. And going with what Lita was saying, when I feel anger, yes, it teaches me about myself and have a little conversation. Why am I angry? Is this justified? But if it's justified, which I don't know, it's usually 50-50. When it's justified, then that is my agent for change. You know, then I know something needs to change, and I know that's kind of who I am today. What made me who I am today. You know, I was angry. You know, Lita, I grew up in a house with a lot of violence, very misdirected anger, and all of those things. And that did make me angry. Of course, I wasn't allowed to express it, but I was still angry. And that helped me create a life for myself that I wanted to see, because I knew what I had experienced was wrong. And I wanted to make sure I didn't visit it on my children. So that was, you know, I had to, that self-examination, and anger will do that. That will definitely bring us into that self-examination.
Yeah.
And we can create change and make life what we want it to be.
Right.
So let me see how much time we have. I think we have time for this one more question. It's kind of a deep one. So how do you think rage, which is often considered a destructive force, how can that be a force for creation and for love? What do you think about that?
Oh, I'd like for the people out there also to write that answer for themselves. Ask the question again. And Rodney did make another comment in there.
How and when does learning take place to earn and learn how to deal with rage in the moment? How and when does the learning take place? That's a good question. It's a very good question. It's probably different for everybody. You know, I think is it possible to examine the self in the midst of the rage?
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to say for myself, it is not. But in getting more comfortable with my own anger, I can feel it as it's rising.
Yeah.
Right.
And take myself out of the situation sooner before I blow up. So I have learned how to do that, you know, and take the breath, or else, you know, not write the response right in that moment, or just, you know what, I need to take a minute here. I'm going to go and breathe.
Take a minute.
Or I say something I'm not going to be able to take back. So for me, it's been a learning of my own temperament, and not letting myself get to that point when I can, if I had the presence of mind to do that, take myself away and just take a couple of deep breaths.
I think that's where this. So sorry, Lita, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say that's where self-awareness is so powerful, because you know, Rodney asked, is it possible to examine self in the midst of rage? And then Josh says, not for me. Let me tell you, I hear you, Josh. I hear you. But as I have grown, especially, you know, Cindy, with this work we've been doing with peace building, which really brings us a lot into our self-examination, I recognize it. And so I know the signs. And so I know, again, like, don't hit the send button when you're feeling that. That's always a good idea. But also to have that other person, to have someone in your life that you can trust. You either call that person, or, you know, just, it's nice to have, I don't know what you would call that, like a safe person. I don't know what.
Accomplice, yeah.
An accomplice, yes. Just someone that you can. And you know very well, it's like, I better not say or do anything until I can either, call this person real quick and double
Right.
check, or do some breath work, some deep breathing, so you can
Take a breath.
let off that steam. And then, our higher selves are probably one of our safest people to go to. And we reach that higher self too with that deep breathing. So those are my go-tos for how to face that rage in the moment. It's not easy.
So how can that rage be a force for creation and love for you, Cindy,
Yeah,
Reverend
that's
Cindy?
what I'm gonna copy that question and put it in the chat so
Oh,
Yeah.
people can
that's
answer
a
that
good one.
too. One of the things from Valerie's conversation was in talking about oxytocin. Oxytocin
Oh, yes.
is the love hormone.
Mhm.
It's the one that makes you
Mhm.
feel all cuddly
Oh, yeah, feel good. The feel
when you
good.
give birth, when you make love. It's like it just
Mhm.
makes you want to love people and all
Yes.
of that, except for one instance, she said, and that is when a mother's young are threatened.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oxytocin will turn into aggression.
Oh,
Will
yeah.
turn into aggression, and that just that really rings true for me. It's like you mess with me. People have messed with me, right?
Yeah. That's fine.
But
But mess with my
mess
kids.
with my children, you have
Mm-mm.
just unleashed a beast.
Mama bear comes out,
Mama
and
bear
it's
comes
Oh,
out.
I'm telling
not
you.
pretty. So this is how that's a force for love, right? Rather than it is a
Exactly.
destructive force.
Right.
But the way I look at it, it's kind of comical, because now that my kids are grown and we talk about it, and they just laugh, and they're like, "Oh, mom, I remember when so and so did this and you were all up. I've never seen you act like that before." And the poor person that was at the receiving end of my rage, I don't know what happened with them. I don't know where they are now, but my kids, they loved it because they saw how Mama Bear came in and protected them. So I guess that's a way of that destructive force being, because it was for protection. It wasn't for personal gain, anything like that. It was for protecting my bear cubs. And I tell you what, you see those grizzlies coming over the mountain running because someone's messing with their bear cub.
That's what
Uh,
happened this past week. Did you see that?
oh,
The bear
oh
that was
yeah.
on the wall, and the
Oh
girl came
yeah.
to push him off, and it was protecting because it had little cubs there, but it was swatting because it was protecting the young.
Yep.
So, yes. So when you said mama bear, I thought about that girl who was pushing the bear off, but she's protecting what she calls her
Her,
young, her animals, and she
yeah.
pushes this bear off the wall. So look at the anger that happened there in order to have that fight within
Yeah,
them.
those two mama bears were going at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Interesting.
whole different conversation, the mama
Oh,
bear
that is.
conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
All right.
sometimes there are times when it is needed, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
Like
someone
that.
is encroaching again to the definition that she gives, right?
Mhm.
Love
Mhm.
engages all of our emotions. So anger is the force that protects that which is loved.
Yes. Very true.
And
So when you're that angry, that there is something that is very precious to you that has been attacked.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's a force of love. You're in protection mode. I mean, that's
mhm,
powerful. That's powerful.
mhm.
And what a gift to have that kind of love, to just almost forget who you are, to go into that protection mode. I see that as a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
I don't know, there's probably some, I really don't know the negative of it, but I just feel bad for the person who's endangering my children. So,
Mhm.
but I'm going to go into protective mode for sure.
Well, and
Yeah.
what happens when our family, so to speak, expands?
Mm.
So like my family, my concern, my protection now isn't just for my kids and my grandkids. It's like for kids in the world. That's why things,
Right.
like
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
kids on the border have why
The
that's
innocence.
just so
Yeah.
so enraging and so painful. Because
Right.
you imagine what would that be if that was, one of my kids
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
someone that I love, and I don't want for anybody's kids to suffer. Yeah.
And Rodney says perhaps anger falls under tough love. when applied in a positive ways? And then is it instinct?
I would
Mm.
say, I mean, I'm looking at those questions and my answer is yes to both,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because we have
Mhm.
that instinct. Something happens, you go into fear and it's fight, flight, freeze,
Right.
Right.
right? So there is that fight that is just hardwired into us,
Mhm.
which tells me there's nothing wrong with it.
Mm.
Right. It's a again, it's to
Necessary.
keep us alive. Yeah, it's necessary.
It's necessary. So it's
Mhm.
all, what we do with it. So yeah,
Right.
it's instinct. And then to take that anger and hone it, right?
Right.
So that we can use it for good means.
It's very true. Well, we've all heard the expression, you get more, what is it? You get more flies with honey than
Honey
you do
and
with vinegar or something like
Mhm.
that. Not that I
Mhm.
want flies, so I'm not really sure about that, but I kind of get it. And it's true. So you're angry. So how do you direct it? Can you do it in a constructive way? And again, that's where that self-awareness comes
Yeah.
in. You got to learn how to do it constructively. Otherwise, no one's going to listen to you if you're just, or shouting.
Or there's shrapnel or hot spaghetti sauce all over the kitchen, right?
Yeah, that's right. Then it's damage control after that. I'm not sure how much good gets done.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, are looking at the time, and half hour goes so fast.
It does.
Really?
So fast. Yes, it
Wow.
does.
Yeah.
But let me see if there's anything else. Oh, and your Phoenix is Rising joined
Just
in with
walked
us
in.
today. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So there's the question of the day, for folks that want to be thinking about that is how can your rage be a force for creation and for love?
Yes.
And for love. And so anybody, y'all want to say anything as we close out?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you. This was wonderful.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking
This
forward to the rest of the month and all the other things that we can open up.
It is. It's true. What a powerful conversation about who knew about rage, and I loved it. So thank you
Yeah.
for allowing me to share as well. And Lita, so great to see you and to get your perspective, and of course, Reverend Cindy.
Yes. Well, thank you, ladies, and to everybody who's been watching. So we'll go ahead and close out. And if you can, join us on the Zoom call afterwards. So for anybody that wants to have a chat about this or still having, their own issues around anger, maybe we talk it through and support one another. And thank you both ladies, actually, because I think I've leaned on you a little bit when I've been when I've needed someone to express.
My pleasure.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
All right,
Oh,
ladies.
great.
See you on Zoom.
Bye.
All right. Well, that was an enlightening conversation, I hope, for folks. Again, we'll be continuing this conversation throughout the month from a few different angles on how we can hone that anger and use it and not allow ourselves to get used up by our emotions, especially our anger and our sadness. So Rodney says, have a rage party, bring and leave your rage. And Marianne, so good to have you all join us, and please write in your questions and your comments in the chat. I'm going to do a better job of incorporating folks' comments into our conversation. So thank you all so much for joining us. So we'll go into the next part of our presentation today, and that will be the sharing of gifts and tithes. And so it is the nature. This is our affirmation. So I'm just going to say it, and I'm going to put it out there to you and encourage you all to give financially. Would be wonderful if you could give and help support the Center for Spiritual Living. We've got so many things going on here. I'm excited to tell you about some of these things, and you will see there's a banner that's floating across the bottom. That is, if you would like to make a donation to Center for Spiritual Living Ocala, you can text from your phone to number 352 from a smartphone, 352-320-5110. And you put in the amount that you would like to donate to the center, and it goes from your bank account to ours once it's set up, and it's really easy to do. The other thing you can do is go to our PayPal at cslocala.org/donate and give that way. And if you're not giving to the Center for Spiritual Living, that's fine, but give someplace because we need to keep things in motion. If you want money, if you need more money, then plant seed money by giving. If you want friendship, if you want love, you give what it is that you want to receive, and it comes back to you. But we have to get the ball in motion. And as I said, there's so many things going on at the Center for Spiritual Living. We've got repairs that are in need. We are going to be opening in a new location. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a bit. But anyway, just encourage you to share your gifts and tithes with the center. It would be greatly appreciated. And so this is our affirmation. It is the nature of life to give of itself. As it is the tree's nature to bear fruit and the flower's nature to bloom, it is my nature to share the gifts of my time, talent, and treasure. I participate in the divine flow of life, giving generously and receiving abundantly. I am blessed and I am a blessing. I am so very grateful. And I am indeed so very, very grateful for everyone that gives to Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. Let me see what else I have to share with you about what's coming up. Oh, no, it's not here. We had a little banner, so I guess I'll have to just tell you about it. Next week, for those of you who are in the Central Florida area, we will be having our grand reopening at the Showcase Event Center, formerly known as the Ocala Ballroom. We will be meeting at 11 o'clock. There we go. Thank you so much, Richard. For our Super Second Sunday at 11 a.m. for bowls, a crystal bowl meditation. And the service will start at 11:30, and we will be having a potluck brunch directly after service. So bring a covered dish if you want, but we're asking for folks to sign up on Eventbrite, and the link will be in the chat for folks to sign up via Eventbrite. So we have an idea how many to expect. We have to put out tables and just want to make sure that we can accommodate everyone. Although there is plenty of room, we're so excited. It is just a beautiful location. And I just want to give a shout out to Elgin Kerlock and the staff at the Showcase Event Center in Ocala. So I hope to see some of you next week. Lots of you, I'm hoping. It should be really fun. We'll get back to having music and folks on stage, and just a lot of fun and conversation and food. You just can't go wrong. So come and hang out with us. We are super excited to be reopening. Our newsletter will be coming out soon. If you're not receiving it and would like to, also go to our Facebook page. There's a link there for you to sign up or let us know that you are interested in the newsletter. And what else is going on? Oh, we have news about our broadcast. Things will be changing up just a little bit in July, but I will tell you about that. Just kind of sneaking in the little tidbit there to pique your interest and be on the lookout for changes on our online broadcast. So I think that's it for our announcements. Thank you for joining us today. I look forward to seeing some of you in person next week. And join us also on, on our Zoom call afterward. Let me look and see if there are any other comments. Marianne McKenzie Gennaro, so good to see you join us. Yes, anger motivates us to solve problems. That is good use of anger. That is constructive use of anger. So thank you for sharing that. And so let's see, with that, I think we will close out. Let me find our prayer for protection. And I will see some of you at least on Zoom. So I ask you to join in this prayer if you want to read it or just listen to me share the prayer and hold your hand over your heart. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And so I just affirm that all is well in your world as you go into your life experience and I go into mine. I just affirm and pray that you have every resource you need to meet any challenge and come out on the other side of it victorious, successful, whatever it is that you need, you already have. Have a great week. I look forward to seeing some of you on Zoom, and we'll catch up again next week. Love and